One of the genres that I absolutely adore that I feel like games don't do a good enough job catering to these days is those online cooperative games where you could play by yourself, but it's really meant to be played with other people. Sea of Thieves, I think, did a phenomenal job of this. More recently, I think at launch, that game lost a lot of momentum because there wasn't a lot of content for it. But you know how you're like in a pirate ship and everybody's doing something? You have one person who's dedicated to being a pilot, one person who's dedicated to doing repairs or manning the cannons or adjusting the sails. Well, imagine that level of complexity, but in outer space. And that's what Void Crew is, and that's the gameplay you're seeing here today. I did buy this game on early access on Steam, so it's not perfect. It's definitely got some very rough edges. Although it says it runs at a high frame rate, I'm convinced the frame pacing is definitely broken. The anti-aliasing doesn't work very well. There are some wonky animations, and there is a lot of polish to be desired. But I think the bones of this game are really solid, and I'm very excited to see where this goes. We picked it up on Steam Early Access, so my friend Matt and Kevin and I are manning a 3-person ship here. And basically, all the functions of the ship require somebody to go and press a button or turn a lever or input some sort of command in order to get the ship to its peak performance. As you go through missions and go around the universe, you will begin to unlock stat points, which will help you customize your build slightly. There's not much to the skill tree system as of yet, but it will help you get perks to piloting or to being a gunner or an engineer. And that allows you to kind of specialize in one particular part of the ship or another. Kevin really likes being the pilot, so he basically decided that he was going to be our captain and fly us all around and navigate, pointing out targets for me to shoot at, pointing out crates for us to loot, and just kind of running the operation. As I mentioned, I was doing the gunner role. You'll see me in this gun quite a bit. And then my friend Matt was doing a lot of the engineering and tech upgrades required to keep the ship running. There's a lot of really cool systems in play here. There's a power system that has to be managed. You can overpower more than the ship actually has power for, but you could eventually overload circuit breakers, which need to be tripped and repaired. You can take damage and use plates to repair some of the damage. You can turn on and off an O2 system, which gives you more breathable air and allows you to be, to avoid some of the environmental stuff where you'll encounter solar flares or ice storms, which could potentially mess up the ship. There's the upgrade system that I mentioned where you can find these crates out in outer space, pull them into the ship, either by going out on a spacewalk, which is actually really, really cool, or by using this gravitational scooper that's this kind of like automatic tractor beam that will suck items in that allow you to upgrade. And you basically build up your ship as you start. The ship there's like 5 or 6 different loadouts right now, and only a handful of ships. I know they will add more as time goes on. But the idea right now is that you're building up a lot of small pieces of your ship and going off on these missions. So by the end, when you kind of cash in, you have a pretty loaded ship with maybe multiple shield generators and extra power and upgraded cannons or upgraded power systems that allow you to be more aggressive in combat. And it's really, really a lot of fun. You can play this game alone. There are ships that are designed for kind of that single player experience, which will do a lot of the systems automatically for you. Unfortunately, in a situation like that, you'll almost exclusively be a pilot because you're going to be stuck flying the ship. Because if you sit for too long, you're most likely going to get destroyed. The amount of enemies that begin to overwhelm you and do dive bomb runs on you, and the proximity mines and some of the environmental hazards that exist in the game can't be avoided if you're not moving. So if you did play this game by yourself, unfortunately, you're not going to have nearly as fun of experience as me, for example, sitting in this gunner seat as Kevin's calling out targets to me on comms, and Matt is in the back replenishing my ammo and keeping the ship up and running. The other thing that the engineer does is manages the amount of boosts. So as you're flying around, if you want a little more speed, there's a separate button you have to press. When you're ready to go to another part of outer space, Depending on the type of ship you have, multiple people have to interact to fire up basically the hyperspace kind of jump drive, which allows you to, launch yourself into another part of space. And it's through this management of getting a crew together, you can start doing some really complex things. One person can be, you can have multiple gunners or multiple engineers or a combination thereof as you're fixing and repairing the ship, taking damage and taking on further missions as you explore into outer space. Now, again, this is an early access game, so a lot of the systems aren't entirely fleshed out. As I mentioned, there's definitely some performance issue here. You notice a lot of the jaggies and some of the dynamic shadows don't look as clean as they should. Combat is somewhat limited based on a handful of enemy fighter types that you will encounter more often than once. While they do have a very fun seasonal event where you have to take down Santa, which was actually a lot of fun, for the most part, the enemies are very samey. There are a handful of missions. There's only a few right now that truly require you to get off the ship, but I think boarding enemy vessels in the future or engaging in some sort of close proximity combat could actually be quite a lot of fun. And then, the progression system, as I said, is lacking. But this is all to be expected for an early access game that was $15. I mean, it wasn't a ton of money. It runs well if they never, ever upgrade anything again. I think we've probably collectively logged close to 12 hours now. I feel like I've gotten my money's worth if they decide to just abandon this game, which I don't think they do. It seems to be getting some pretty positive reception. I know we've had a lot of fun jumping in together and making our own fun and leveling up to get to other biomes and to take on different sets of missions to kind of progress a little bit. Not much in the way of story. Maybe there will be later. And it really just comes down to kind of that experience of managing something with a crew. And when all the systems are running together, your litany cannons are firing at full speed, you have your close range defense system firing, you're flying around, fixing things, going out through the airlock into outer space and fixing your ship, as it's flying around through the atmosphere by welding metal plates back on and kind of repairing pieces of the ship. It is really a lot of fun. And even now, just for me, being the gunner and just kind of smoking wave after wave of these fighters and kind of shooting flak out into outer space is very, very satisfying. The cannons feel great, and the combat is snappy enough that it's serviceable. I'd love to see this game have controller support, but it doesn't right now. You're basically stuck to keyboard and mouse, but it kind of makes sense because there are a lot of prompts and such that need to be kind of manipulated in order to maneuver and manage different parts of your ship. But if you guys liked Sea of Thieves, if you like games where you have to collectively work together to operate vehicles much larger than you, and you have a good set of friends who are willing to work through some of the bugs with you and have all great microphones because you're going to be talking a lot in this game, lots of comms, then I think this is definitely a game either to check out, it's on sale right now, or to at least keep on your radar as more patches and more content becomes fleshed out. This is one of those games to me that really is only available on that PC space. I haven't seen many of these types of experiences on other platforms. Probably the closest one that comes to mind, although it's much more cartoony but still equally as satisfying, is Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. I think that's another great game where you're working together on a ship. Everybody kind of has their own roles and responsibilities in order to be successful. You could jump in and take on any other task. This is just rendered in a much more realistic 3D environment with, slightly different tone than that game. So that wraps up my kind of early thoughts for this game. Check it out. As more stuff becomes available, I'll definitely post more videos and update if there's new missions or new modes or new ships or something that I think is rewarding in and of itself. I intentionally left the voice off, or rather the sound effects out, because there was so much voice chat. It'd be hard for me to commentate over what we were hearing, but I'm sure at some point, if somebody was interested, we could probably do some sort of Let's Play where we can kind of navigate through what we're doing so you get a sense of what the look and feel of this game is actually like when you're managing it, because it is pretty cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.